Hey guys, Christy Shelton from foreverandafter.com, and today I wanted to come to you and kind of explain the difference between emotional eating and having a food addiction. So I know earlier in the series we talked about the 8 signs of food addiction, and with sharing those I shared with you guys kind of some ideas or ways to kind of know if you have a problem with food. The big difference between emotional eating and food addiction is really the body's process. So with somebody who emotionally eats, generally there was something in their life that triggered either a loss, or maybe it was feelings of inadequacy or depression, something like that, that caused you to look to something else for that fulfillment that you don't get, or the joy that you don't get from other aspects of your life. Somebody with a food addiction is going to have like a chemical dependency on food, I guess you could say, where either they can't give up a food, kind of like an alcoholic. If you've ever known anybody that's been an alcoholic, you know that they really want to give up whatever their drink of choice is, but they have a really hard time doing that because their body depends on that alcohol. In fact, some of the symptoms of withdrawal you see with those people are like tremors, handshakes, moodiness, and the likes. And a lot of that happens to people that have severe food addiction as well. But a lot of us get confused, and we confuse our emotional eating tendencies with food addiction. And now, don't get me wrong, it is possible for somebody to have both. It's possible to have a food addiction to certain foods or certain ingredients in certain foods, and also at the same time have emotional eating. For me, my control of food, I guess you could say, started pretty much out of high school. Like, I was slender in high school. I wasn't popular, but I wasn't unpopular either. My school was really big, and so there was lots of different circles that you could travel in. And in school, I was always an athlete, so I was always super thin. But after I got out of high school and I wasn't working out as much anymore, I started to turn to food for the empty feelings that I felt. Like, if you're an adult and you've tried to make friends, you know how hard it can be to make a new circle of friends when you're not really a student anymore and you're in the workplace, and it's really hard to kind of adapt and change that. And I took some time off between high school and college, so I didn't go right into the college swing. I never went away to college. I went right into the workplace, so it made it a little bit more difficult for me. So for me, food was always a comfort. It was the one thing in my life that no matter how bad my life had gotten, no matter how out of control it was, I could always control what I was putting in my mouth. And that gave me power, and it gave me some emotional peace where I almost felt, I guess that's where my control freak tendency started, was with food. But I felt like I could do what I wanted. And when you look at yourself in the mirror and you're gaining a couple pounds here and there, you don't really notice the outcome or the consequences of it until, you wake up one day and you see a picture of yourself and you're 30, 40, 50, or in my case now 100 pounds overweight, and you just look back and you wonder how you got to that place. And it's really hard to narrow that down. For me, food is always a crutch. It's the place I turn to when I'm sad, when I feel like there's something missing in my day, when I've had a really terrible day. First thing I want to do is go through the McDonald's drive-thru, get a Big Mac, some chicken nuggets. I've given up soda, so that's not a crutch for me anymore. That was. But the days that are the hardest for you, that you struggle with the most, are often the days that you tend to cave in. And for me, a lot of it is laziness. A lot of it is the convenience. And I think that's where a lot of us get into bad habits. We like the convenience of going through drive-thrus and picking up food and not having to cook or dirty our kitchen or do dishes or any of that. Super convenient. But that's how my food emotional eating issues started. Was, growing up, I didn't know my biological father, and I always felt like there was something wrong with me, that he didn't want me. He has other kids and he was active in their lives, and it took me until I was 25 or 30 to really get to peace with that that just was the way that I grew up. And looking back now, I wouldn't change it for the world. But at that time, it made me feel like I had a void that I needed to fill. And that's why I still kind of turn to food when my life is chaos, when my husband and I are having problems, when I'm feeling low, when I've had a bad day, when I didn't get that promotion that I worked so hard for. It's really easy for me to turn to food. Now, I do think that I have some chemical tendencies for food. I won't say that I'm a full out food addict. Like, I don't think that my body has to have certain foods to function, like some addiction and some people have with different foods. I do know that my body, it's very dependent, and if I introduce sugar, or like if I start eating a piece of bread, I can't stop myself. So I have to be very careful about the choices I make with my food, and that may be the way that it is for some of you guys too. So I hope this helps explain for you guys the difference between food addiction, which is more of like a physiological dependence on food where your body has to have it to survive. Sometimes this is going to be people that can't or won't give up a food or a food group even though they know it's bad for them. Versus emotional eating, which it can be eating to fill a void, eating to make you happy, eating to have that feeling of control, or not eating to have that feeling of control. The other side to that is, instead of overeating, you don't eat enough because you feel like that's the one thing you can control in your life. I hope that sheds some light on this subject for you, and if you're struggling with food addiction or weight loss or any kind of emotional issues, make sure that you reach out to somebody, whether it be me or another professional. Make sure that you have somebody in your corner that can hold your hand and help you through to get the results that you really want, because a lot of the biggest part of my programs and my success with my clients is accountability. So make sure that you're giving yourself 100% and that you have that accountability. I encourage you to not just chase your dreams, grab them and live them forever. Have a great night.